breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warm up for the hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an amazing podcast for you as in segment number 2 where you're going to be joined by Jon Jansen. He does great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, The Gambler, taking a look at a wide variety of things out there in Philadelphia, including, well, the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to talk a lot about them, the NL East. We're going to take a little bit of a look at the NL Central in general, try to get some of his thoughts on the games that are going to be coming up for Tuesday as well. And then in the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_D1. Keep in mind, Larsium, Amy does not matter. As per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Really did not get in any Twitter questions today, and do have to do this a little bit earlier, so not going to give you guys a recap of the West Coast games just because they are still going on as I do this podcast. Since the Greg Peterson Experience is from 9 to midnight Pacific, and that would be midnight to 3 Eastern time, so I have to record this before some of those games are all done. But let's take a look back at everything that we got on the MLB front on Monday, try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Well, we're going to talk about this with Jon Jansen a little bit more, but the Philadelphia Phillies off to a rough start to the year. They fall to the New York Yankees 8-1, and Phillies actually got more hits in this game than the New York Yankees. They just came up snake eyes every time they got one, and it was a bad day for Taijuan Walker. His debut with the Philadelphia Phillies gives up 4 runs in 4 1/3 innings, including a home run to Gleyber Torres, his second home run of the season. Then Anthony Rizzo took Junior Marte deep, and for Marte, a bad start to his Philadelphia Phillies career, as that was Rizzo's first of the season. For Marte, gives up 4 runs in 1/3 of an inning. You did have Sir Anthony Dominguez get out of having an infinite ERA with a scoreless setting, and then you did have 2 1/3 innings scoreless out of Andrew Vasquez. And for Nestor Cortes, a very good showing in this one, as he does allow 7 hits in 5 innings, but only 1 run. From there, Jonathan Loaizaga, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Ian Hamilton was able to provide 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and Clay Holmes, a scoreless setting. The other New York team, they did not fare so well. The New York Mets got blanked by the Milwaukee Brewers 10-0, as the Brewers are now on a 3-game win streak. For the Mets, they leave 9 men on base. They were only able to muster 3 hits as Freddie Peralta, he was on his game. 6 scoreless innings, and then 3 scoreless out of Bryce Wilson, who's doing his tour of NL Central teams right now. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, pair of home runs out of their young players, Brian Anderson and Bryce Turang, were both able to get their first home run of the campaign, as Carlos Cookie Carrasco, not long for this game, giving up 5 runs in 4 innings, including 1 of those home runs. The other one was given up by Tommy Hunter. Gives up 5 runs in 2 innings before Dennis Santana, along with Luis Guillorme, position player, were both able to provide a scoreless inning. Not a good day for Michael Kopech and the Chicago White Sox. 12-3 the final in this one. As for San Francisco, they give Anthony DeSclafani the start. He really missed much of last year due to injury, and he looked very sharp. 6 scoreless innings. Sean Manaea of the bullpen did not look so sharp. He gave up 3 runs over the course of 2 innings, including a home run to Luis Robert, his second home run season. And then for the Giants, you got 1 scoreless inning out of one of the Rogers, as it was Tyler Rogers who was able to provide this one. And for the San Francisco Giants, it was home run derby in this one, as Michael Kopech allows 5 home runs and Jose Ruiz allows 2 more. As for the San Francisco Giants, Jock Peterson's second home run season, and Mike Yastrzemski, Thairo Estrada, Michael Conforto were all able to get their first home run of the season. You had a pair of home runs in this one from David Villar, home runs number 1 and 2 of the season. And then you got first home run of the season out of Bryce Johnson as well. As for Michael Kopech, he should have been renamed Hickory because he got smoked, giving up 5 home runs, 7 runs, a total of 4 2/3 innings. For Ruiz, gives up 5 runs in 1/3 of an inning, including 2 of those home runs. Jake Diekman, 2 scoreless innings, 1 1/3 innings scoreless out of Jimmy Lambert, and Ansel Alberto was able to provide a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. So not a great night there. Good night for the Cincinnati Reds. Connor Overton, he lived up to his name. This one game went over, but you saw the Cincinnati Reds get it done by a count of 7-6 as Overton allows 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, including a home run. Going deep for the Chicago Cubs, it was home run number 1 in a Cubs uniform for Cody Bellinger. Ian Gabo gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Bullpen from there had this thing on lockdown. Buck Farmer, along with Derek Law, both provided scoreless inning. Fernando Cruz, along with Revier San Martin, 2 scoreless innings, and then you had an out of the bullpen out of Alex Young. And for the Cincinnati Reds, you had home run number 2 of the season for Jason Vossler. That was very big, as for the Chicago Cubs, Drew Smyly was not smiling about this performance. 7 runs, 6 of which were earned in 4 2/3 innings, and why they're not starting Keegan Thompson, I have no idea. Came out of the bullpen, 3 1/3 innings scoreless, 3 strikeouts, 1 hit allowed. He was rock solid, but by then, damage had already been done. Speaking of damage, lots of damage was done to Johnny Cueto as the Minnesota Twins win by a count of 11-1 on the road against the Marlins. Marlins actually had 12 hits to the Minnesota Twins 10, but for the Minnesota Twins, Tyler Mahle was able to do a good job of stranding guys on. He allowed 5 hits over the course of 5 innings, but just 1 run surrendered as Miami. They go 2 of 9 with men in scoring position, but a lot of soft contact with them as Jorge Alcala, 2 scoreless innings, and Cole Sands allows 5 hits in 2 innings, but no runs. So good on him. For the Minnesota Twins, they were able to get the deep ball going as you had Trevor Larnach, Max Kepler both provide home run number 1 of the season. Joey Gallo was able to get his 3rd home run of the season, so he's looking good thus far in a Minnesota Twins uniform. And then it was home run number 1 of the season for Ryan Jeffers as Johnny Cueto allowed 2 of those home runs, giving up 4 runs in an inning. From there, you had 5 innings from Jeff Lindgren, giving up 4 runs along the way. He pretty much just had to eat it in this one. Jacob Stallings, position player, gave up a solo home run in his inning. JT Chargois, scoreless inning, and Andrew Nardi was able to provide an inning, giving up 2 runs along the way. The Tampa Bay Rays continued the Washington Nationals what figures to be a bad season. 6-2, the Tampa Bay Rays get it done as they are still undefeated. 4-0 this year as Luke Raley had a pair of home runs in this one. First and second of the campaign. First one comes off of Trevor Williams, who he got the start, gave up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned over the course of 5 innings, giving up 2 home runs. Other one was to Isaac Paredes, his first home run of the season. Mason Thompson gives up the other one, going 3 innings, giving up just a solo home run before Anthony Banda allows a run out of the bullpen in an inning. Jeimer Candelario, the former Tiger, was able to go deep in the 9th inning for his first home run of the season. That was off of Kelvin Fotcher, as Mr. Fotcher allows 1 run over the course of 2 innings, and if you took the total of 8, very significant, as that caused for a push, as Garrett Clevenger, Jason Adam, they both combined for a scoreless inning, and Drew Rasmussen, really good start. 2 hits surrendered over the course of 6 scoreless innings. We've got quite a few games that are going on as I do this podcast. Unless if the Royals royally screw this one up, the DK Nation pick of their money line should be able to come through. 9-4, they're currently up in the bottom of the 8th inning as Jose Barrios, oh boy, it was not good for him, and that was great for us because he gave up 8 runs in 5 2/3 innings. Zach Pop had things a poppin'. He gives up a solo home run over the course of 1 1/3 innings as MJ Melendez takes him deep for his first home run of the season, and Brady Singer was a little bit hairy. He had the bases loaded in the 5th inning, but gives up 1 run over the course of 5 innings. Ryan Yarbrough gives up a pair of runs in his 1 2/3 innings, and Dylan Coleman also allows a run in an inning, but it looks like the Royals should be able to get there on that front. We shall see if the Red Sox are able to claw this one back, as it is 7-6 going into the bottom of the 9th inning in their game, and one that has been completely harebrained. Cutter Crawford just had nothing in this one. 7 runs surrendered in 4 innings, including a trio of home runs to the poopy Pittsburgh Pirates. Brian Reynolds, his 2nd and 3rd home runs of the season, and Jason DeLay was able to go deep for the Pirates. Yohan Oviedo didn't do much better. 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, surrendered in 4 2/3 innings, as Rafael Devers, Masataka Toshida, along with Tristan Casas, were all able to get home runs number 1 of the season. From there, it's been the poo-poo platter of relievers coming in as Colin Holderman has scoreless inning, Dori Barretta, along with Rob Zanarski, combined to give up a run in an inning. Dwayne Underwood Jr., 1 1/3 inning scoreless. And for the Red Sox, bullpen actually didn't do a bad job. Richard Blyer, Ryan Brazier, Caleb Bort, all scoreless innings, and Zach Kelly, 2 scoreless innings, but not a great start on that front for them. The Orioles are currently up 2-0 going into the 8th inning against the Texas Rangers, as Kyle Bradish went 1 2/3 innings. I'm going to need to see if he was removed due to injury or what, but Tyler Wells, who was supposed to be the starter on Tuesday, so that means that the handicap that I did, I'm going to need to update that spreadsheet in the AM. He came in for 4 scoreless, so that is going to throw things completely out of whack. Meanwhile, for the Walker Texas Rangers, 55 Shades of John Gray, not bad in this one, giving up 2 runs in 6 1/3 innings. Problem was he did give up a pair of solo home runs as Ode Mateo and Gunnar Anderson both get their first home run of the campaign. So we'll see what happens there. Currently 4-4 in Rangers versus the Detroit Tigers, and looks like the Braves should be able to get this one done 8-4. They're currently up on the St. Louis Cardinals going into the bottom of the 8th as Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley were both able to get a home run off of Jake Woodford, who got destroyed, giving up 3 home runs, 6 runs in total over the course of 4 1/3 innings, and then you had home run number 2 of the season from Ronald Acuna Jr. He's back in full force. From there, you did have Jordan Hicks go 2 innings, giving up 2 runs. Zach Thompson 1 2/3 innings. He does not give up a run, and Paul Goldschmidt did go deep in this one. Home run number 1 of the season as he cranks one off of Nick Anderson after Charlie Morton gave up 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings. So we shall see what happens there, and no doubt about it, we are doing this while some of these games are still in progress, but you take a look at what we've gotten this season in Major League Baseball going into a lot of the night games on Monday. We had seen 26 overs, 25 unders, and a push. We really haven't seen anything too demonstrative happening right now in Major League Baseball. Road teams start out 26-26 on the money line. Favorites are 32-20. A lot of these have been just rather chalkier favorites, so we shall see if that is going to balance out a little bit, but nothing really too massive in terms of the trend department right now in Major League Baseball, but we are going to be tracking it all season long, and we are also going to be getting great guests on the podcast all season long. It's coming up next. We are going to be chatting with our good friend Jon Jansen. He does great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, The Gambler. We're going to be talking with him about the Philadelphia Phillies, the NL East, and so much more right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units return, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their MBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and it is always great to be joined by our guest as Jon Jansen. He does great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, The Gambler. You're able to catch him on the show The Line Change. That is from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. I know that sometimes there's a little bit of variance with that because I know that over there at The Gambler, they do a great job of serving all Philadelphia sports. And on top of that, if you're looking for some video game reviews, he does a great job over at RP Gamer. That is a company that is based out there in the great state of Wisconsin. So always love to see that and always love to see this man on the show. As to be able to follow Jon on Twitter as at JJansen34 all together. And Jon, always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And baseball means I get to talk with Greg Peterson more, so that's always a good thing.
It is always a good thing. What is not a good thing, though, is that the Philadelphia Phillies entered into Monday's action 0-3, a little bit of a rough series for them out in Texas. We don't know how the outcome of the Yankees game from Monday went, but what have you gathered from the Phillies' first few games of the season? Because no doubt about it, a very small sample size, but for the Philadelphia Phillies, it feels like the biggest issue for this team right now is something that was an issue for them throughout the year last year, the bullpen.
Yeah, bullpen was a big problem, I think, early on in that series against Texas. I guess what the more concerning than that is they were also handed spots that weren't good. You know, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola did not pitch well, and that's not good for the Phillies. And look, those are two guys that pitched a lot last year. They went deep into the playoffs. Aaron Nola has been an innings eater his entire career. Zach Wheeler's been pitching more with the Phillies than he has in his entire career. I would be concerned a little bit that maybe these guys are just going to have one of those years where they seem a bit fatigued, and that's a problem. But it's not going to help when then you hand it off to your bullpen and a guy like Connor Brogdon gives up a couple of runs, or Soto, who I thought was an amazing addition from Detroit. He gives up 3 runs in his 1 inning that he was pitching. It's not good when Josh Harrison, an infielder, has to pitch. It's not good when a position player has to come in at all. So the fact that it's already happened in the first 3 games for the Phillies isn't good. It's a combination of everything, I think, for the pitching. There are two aces not looking like it, and then their bullpen, which we thought was revamped and maybe the best bullpen they've had in quite a long time, didn't look anything like it.
Yeah, it was not necessarily the world's greatest first series for them, but the offense looks relatively solid. I recognize that Sunday Night Baseball was not too terrific for them, but do you think that this could be another one of those years where the Philadelphia Phillies, they put up great offensive numbers and they're playing a lot of like 6-5, 7-5 sort of games?
It's looking that way so far, and maybe it will earlier in the year. Maybe it's going to take a little bit for Wheeler and Nola to look like themselves, but also they're dealing with an injury to Ranger Suarez. So they're not going to have him until the end of April, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on Taijuan Walker to get a lot of innings. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Bailey Falter, and he actually looked like the best pitcher the entire series against Texas, but also pressure on your aces. Like, they have to get this going early. So I think in the early going, it could be like that, but once they do settle in, once they do get healthy, I don't think pitching is going to be as big of an issue. Good thing for them. Jose Alvarado still looks incredible, so he was able to take that second half success and postseason success and bring it into this season. That was a really good thing to see from him. I think pitching early on is going to be an issue, but I think once they kind of settle into the season, I don't think it will as much. And as you just mentioned, look, not a great Sunday night game, but that's still their top 10 in WOBA so far through 3 games. I think they're 8th in runs created plus. So the offense was able to put up some good numbers, and they're doing that despite not having Rhys Hoskins, who unfortunately they're going to miss for the year, but also Bryce Harper, who should hopefully be returning sometime in May.
The return of Bryce Harper is no doubt going to be big for this team, as well as Phillies currently dealing with a few ailments. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Jon Jansen. He does great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, and I do think that's going to be key for the Philadelphia Phillies to hold down the fourth. They don't need to get off to some sort of a big 20-5 run here moving forward or anything like that. But as we know, the NL East, it's going to be one of the most competitive divisions in all of baseball. The Mets are also a team that's dealing with some ailments, but at the same time, they've been able to get off to a relatively okay start, Sands, when they give up 7 runs in an inning to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Atlanta Braves are the Atlanta Braves, and the Miami Marlins have some solid pitching. So what is your overall outlook on this NL East? Because I do think that, once again, sans Washington Nationals, who I don't see anything other than a terrible season for them, that I think that's, once again, going to be one of the most competitive divisions in all baseball.
It will be. And we always talk about the Braves being good, but then obviously they're kind of out of sight, out of mind. I haven't seen that lineup. And so when opening day came around and the lineup cards start going out and you see that Braves lineup and see 1 through 9 and like, oh gosh, Arcia is their 9th hitter and Rosario's their 8th hitter and Ozuna's their 7th. Top to bottom, that might be the most complete lineup in all of baseball. So as much as I wanted to give the Phillies a chance to compete, I think they could potentially get that second spot over the Mets. I'd be more concerned about their bullpen and the fact they don't have Edwin Diaz. I don't know how they're going to replace that. And their bullpen was fine last year, but a lot of their issues were masked by Edwin Diaz closing out games very well. And now you're going to start the season with Justin Verlander on the injured list. So some things with the Mets that I do kind of have questions about. The Braves, I don't, though. Any thoughts of me thinking that the Phillies were going to be able to compete in that division? I just don't see it. That lineup is too good for the Braves. Could I potentially see some regression in their starting rotation? I think yes, with Charlie Morton. But then they have another guy, Jordan Strouser, that comes along and he has this amazing spring. And you hear Max Fried going, yeah, that guy looks like he's going to be amazing. The Braves are just so good that I don't know who it's going to be from their minor league system, but they're always going to have a starting pitcher come up like Spencer Strider did last year that's going to pitch well, and they're going to find a way to have this really deep, really strong starting rotation. And it looks like they're going to do that again this year. So any fleeting thoughts I had about the Phillies competing in the National League East crown, I think they could take the second spot, but that Braves lineup and Braves team, it's way too strong.
And do not forget about the man that is going to be starting on Tuesday as well. Dylan Dodd, the Dodd father, is going to be making his MLB debut. So that is going to be very interesting to see, as they're going to be taking on a St. Louis Cardinals team that I think should be the favorite in the NL Central. But if you're looking at all 3 of the National League divisions, I think by far the Central is the weakest, because I think that the Cardinals are the number 1 team in that division. And as you know, I'm someone from Wisconsin. I think when it's all said and done, there's a chance that the Brewers finish 3rd in that division behind the Chicago Cubs. I'm not sure how you've really been taking a look at the National League outside of the East, but I do think that in terms of the division in which it just feels like there's that one demonstrative favorite, it is the Central, just because other than the St. Louis Cardinals, I'm not really impressed by any of the other teams in that Central.
I'm not. I think there is some promise with Chicago, so that's one team I do think can kind of sneak into the wild card, so I love their futures. But yeah, I agree with you on the Brewers. Now, they just had a really good game against the Mets, and they're starting off 3-1. A good start to the season for the Brewers. But I think as the season goes along, this lineup is going to struggle a lot at times. And there is going to be long periods of time where they don't get any offense. And what was a really good starting rotation a couple of years ago that could have handled that, and Freddie Peralta pitched really well against the Mets, so he's off to a good start. But, is Lauer and Peralta and Burns did not look good at all against Chicago, and Woodruff, are they going to be good enough to potentially mask what could be a bottom 20 lineup in all of baseball? I think that's the kind of lineup that they have, that this could get really ugly for them. So good start, and we know they have good pitching, and shutting out the Mets is really impressive. And again, scoring 10 runs and 7 runs in one inning is pretty impressive. But I just concerned long-term throughout the season if Milwaukee can hold up. Now, I think Chicago, they're not the deepest team. I'm not going to tell you that they're the most talented team, but there is some young talent on that team that I love. I think Dansby Swanson is already paying off for his contract. He has looked great. It's not the best starting rotation, but Stroman, Tyone, Hendricks when he gets healthy, Justin Steele looked good second half of the season and already off to a good start this year, and Drew Smyly. It's not the best, but I think it is one that is good enough to where Chicago can surprise, can get that second spot. And I think they do end up sneaking in for a wild card. But the Cardinals, speaking of, teams that I just look at that lineup and go, how is anybody going to beat them? Cardinals starting rotation is questionable. That lineup going to work just fine in the regular season. So I just don't see any team in the Central keeping up.
I do think that we're going to be seeing a very good season from the St. Louis Cardinals, and I do think that the Cubs, they do have a little bit of upside, as well as Jon Jansen. He does great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, and he's joining me on the podcast. And John, just in terms of more of a general view, as we know, lots of rule changes this year in Major League Baseball with the pitch clock, with no more shifting, what have you. What have you made out of it? Because I think the biggest reaction that I have from everything that's happened with the rule changes is that I haven't noticed it a whole heck of a lot. It doesn't feel like the game is drastically different from what it's been in past years. It's been nice to get games done in about 2 hours and 30 minutes rather than 3 hours. But by and large, in terms of the actual product itself, watching these games, handicapping, I don't think that there should be too much of an impact on it as of right now. Maybe if something else comes along, and I'm more than happy to make those adjustments. But as of right now, I haven't had to adjust too much of what I've done from past years.
Yeah, I think you're right. When it comes to sides and totals, I don't think it's going to change much because, like you just said, it's hardly even noticeable. Now, I think we can, on an individual case-by-case basis, look at pitchers that might be struggling with it. Guys maybe are walking a little bit more because they're feeling rushed. Aaron Nola was talking, and he was saying he was feeling rushed in the first game. And also, JT Realmuto mentioned it as well. Like, hey, once things started to kind of get out of hand and started to roll, that really affected us. So maybe on an individual case-by-case basis, we can. But overall, no. The only thing, and the thing I thought it was going to impact the most, stolen bases. So stolen bases props, I've never really looked into because nobody would steal bases, but now there is an incentive to steal. It seems profitable and rewarding to steal for teams, and I think they're going to continue to be aggressive all season long. If you're going up against a really good catcher, obviously you might not want to bet it, but I think in some circumstances we can look at that. But that's just a really small individual prop. But the overarching, is it affecting games? Is it affecting sides and totals? I really don't think that's going to change my process at all when it comes to betting these games.
I totally agree with you. I do take a look at this ordeal, and I do think that it's good for the game of baseball. But at the same time, I don't think that it's going to have too much of an impact on a lot of these games. And John, just taking a look at what we've got for this week in terms of the Tuesday card, are there any games that really stand out to you? I know that certainly you're going to be taking a look at this Phillies versus New York Yankees game, with Phillies looking to get back online, try to be able to take a few games out there in the northeast part of the country. But anything really standing out to you that you're either going to be looking to bet or you just want to see a little bit more out of these teams in general?
Yeah, definitely seeing more out of. So Shane Bieber had a good second half of the year last year. Oakland is not hitting well at all. So this looks like this should be a matchup on Tuesday where Shane Bieber should be able to go 7, shut down that Oakland lineup. And with the Guardians offense, which it's not off to the best start, but they were able to manufacture runs all series long against Seattle. They should be able to win that on the run line. Also, Dodgers splitting, but Julio Urias off to a decent start. They're a huge favorite, but I think one of the things I'm going to look at early is Baltimore. They have this amazing combination, Greg, for betting totals where their offense is amazing. And this may be one of the better lineups in baseball because of all the young talent. Rutschman could end up being an MVP candidate. I don't think he wins it. I think, honestly, Ohtani is going to run away with it. But Rutschman's going to be in that conversation. That's the second-year jump I'm expecting from him, and he's that kind of talent. But Santander, you got Henderson, all these really young players that have been great for Baltimore, and Cedric Mullins is already off to a good start. But that lineup's going to be great. And it's going to be one of the worst pitching staffs in all of baseball. It's going to have this great combination of either they're going to go over the total by themselves or they're going to give up the total by themselves. And so far, they've given up a lot of runs to Boston. I think they're going to do it the same against Texas, and I think they're going to be able to score a lot of runs. So their total, I'm on it for Monday, and I'm going to potentially be on it Tuesday as well. But that's definitely something I'm looking at. And also, I just can't wait for the Cardinals and Braves series, especially you just mentioned with the Dodd-father and Steven Matz. He's going to have to step up big. The Cardinals are going to need somebody like that to step up big. And can he do that against a really good Braves lineup?
I am very much looking forward to that Braves versus Cardinals series. I think that is going to be a very good one. The Braves, high-powered offense, little bit of a new look with regards to some of their pitchers, though. So I want to see how they're going to be faring. And a man that always does a great job of being able to produce time and time again. That'd be you, John. I know that you're out there in the great city of Philadelphia, taking a look at darn near everything in this city, because you not just have a lot of baseball on your hands, but I know that you guys are getting set for what is going to be an incredible football season with the Eagles making the Super Bowl last year. I know you've got some MLS to cover out there as well. The Philadelphia 76ers are a hot button topic as well. So love the good people at home. Know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
We do it all over The Gambler. So follow us at FoxPHL Gambler, FoxPHLGambler.com. You can follow me at JJansen34. And I'm also inspired by Greg Peterson, doing my own daily baseball podcast as well with my co-host Jeremy Horwath. So Stealing the Bag, put out a graphic on there so you'll be able to see that on my Twitter account, but also FoxPHLGambler.com. You'll be able to get that every Monday through Friday. So yeah, starting my own venture with a daily baseball podcast, so you can check that out as well.
John does absolutely amazing work taking a look at the great game of baseball, and I know that he joined me on this podcast a lot last year. Hopefully we can get him on quite a bit this year, because every single time he joins this podcast, lends great insights, much like he did today. A big thanks to John for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Always great to be joined by Jon Jansen. Does a great job hosting this show. The line change over there at Fox Sports Philadelphia, The Gambler. Every single time he joins this podcast, he always lends tremendous insights, much like he did today. And for those of you guys that like video games, he actually does a great job over at RP Gamer, taking a look at some video games as well. So always nice to be able to get John aboard. Now it is that time of the podcast. They give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at GN_D1. They make it actually quite easy to go in Las Vegas tradition order when it comes to baseball. Goes National League games first, then the American League games, and any Interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom, so that'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. And without further ado, let's dive in on that first National League game of 901-902 on the board. It is the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they're going to be hitting their face-off against the Slam Diego Padres. Hugh Darvish is going to be going for the Pods, and Zach Gallen is on the bump for Arizona. And Arizona is between a plus 122 to a plus 130 underdog, finding the Padres anywhere between minus 136 and minus 145. 7 is the total. Over is minus 120, and the under is even. And I did set my total at 6.8, so going to be looking under in this ordeal. Yu Darvish is making his first start of the year, but looked relatively solid in the World Baseball Classic. I know that did cause him to stunt his spring training sort of workouts just a little bit, but by and large, I think that he's going to be just fine in this ordeal and was really able to close out strong towards the back half of last year as well. Pitched really well in San Diego with a 2.60 ERA in 13 starts a season ago, giving up about 1.15 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 rate last year was sub 2, and then you've got Zach Gallen, who got off to a rough start to begin the year. Gives up 5 runs in that start against the LA Dodgers, but it's against the LA Dodgers on the road to begin the season, and I do think that he's going to be just fine as well. You go back to what he was able to do during the 2022 season, and this guy was very rock solid, posting up about a 2.54 ERA, 2.59 when he was away from home, and he's been able to find quite a bit of success when he has been pitching against the NL West. But the one team that really has had his number is the San Diego Padres. In 3 starts, he gave up 10 runs, 9 of which were earned last season, including a trio of homers, so you do have a little bit of an issue there. Overall, he did give up just 0.75 home runs per 9 innings a season ago, but you do take a look at this Padres lineup, and I do think that the Padres are going to be able to get to him in this ordeal. You bring in Xander Bogaerts, and he had a nice first series for the San Diego Padres. Being able to put up 6 hits in that series against the Rockies is a good start to the season. We shall see what they're able to get out of some of the guys that they're kicking the tires on, like Matt Carpenter, Rougned Odor. Trent Grisham has not been himself, and Juan Soto entered into yesterday 1 of 14. He just has not been himself the last year plus, but you know that Manny Machado is going to be able to pick it up. And then for the Arizona Diamondbacks, one of the best power hitting teams away from home last season, I don't think they're going to be able to duplicate that this year. Christian Walker, he had 35 home runs last season. He was able to do a nice job, and they've got guys that are able to move the line. Ketel Marte, Lourdes Gurriel, these guys are able to do a nice job, but towards the bottom of the fold, guys like a Nick Ahmed, Jake McCarthy, have my question marks there, though. I did see Corbin Carroll have those 3 stolen bases against the LA Dodgers on Sunday. That is going to be a nice weapon for the Diamondbacks. Even the Diamondbacks, they have bolstered the bullpen a little bit from last year. They bring in Andrew Chafin. They bring in Miguel Castro. That is much better than guys like Mark Melancon from a season ago. And for the San Diego Padres, a little bit of top-heavy bullpen. You love Luis Garcia, Josh Hader, what they're able to provide in the 8th and 9th innings. Being able to get the ball to them, that is going to be a little bit more of an adventure. Domingo Tapia, not necessarily terrific. I do like Nabel Crismet. He's someone that is able to give you multiple innings, so that's helpful as well, but I think that Yu Darvish is going to look like his Yu Darvish self, and I do think that the Padres are going to be able to put this on lockdown and continue their success against Zach Gallen. Since my total 6.8, I don't think that Gallen pitches bad. I just think that he gets outdueled in this ordeal a little bit by Yu Darvish, who has pitched very well in San Diego. So set the Padres at a minus 162. Won't take them on the money line. Don't really want any part of the run line in this ordeal, even though it is like a plus 155 price. And then set my total at 6.8, so you're at 7, also diving under. 903, 904 on the betting board. The Chicago Cubs hit third face-off against the Cincinnati Reds. Yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and Luis Cessa gets a start for them. Hayden Wesneski is going to be getting the start for the Cubs. And the Cubs, between minus 123 and minus 130 favorites, anywhere between plus 110 and plus 115, the number on Cincinnati. 9 is the total, over and under, anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115. And I'm going to be taking a look at the under in this spot. Set my total at an 8.7 because with Wesneski, small sample size last year, very good sample size last year, made 4 starts, 6 total appearances, and he burst onto the scene in a big way in a 33 and a third innings, 33 strikeouts, 8 runs allowed. His last start of the season against the Cincinnati Reds gives up 1 earned run, 2 runs in total over the course of 6 innings. So also did set the Cubs as a minus 134 favorite. For Luis Cessa, he was able to put together some nice starts towards the back half of last year. He gave up a combined 6 earned runs over the course of his last 4 starts, including 1 run surrendered at 5 innings against the Chicago Cubs. So both of these pitchers have a good track record against one another, but you take a look at the lineups for both of these teams, and it's very clear that the Cubs have the better lineup. They bring in Dansby Swanson, which is absolutely amazing for the team. He's gotten off to a really nice start, exactly what this team needed, someone that's able to move the line while providing a little bit of power. Now, Cody Bellinger was able to go deep yesterday. I am still waiting to see if he's able to get anywhere near his old MVP form, and if he's able to get anywhere near it, that'll be very big because his home run yesterday was the first hit of the season for him. But I like the addition of Trey Boom Boom Mancini. No doubt you're going to get your swings and misses with Patrick Wisdom, but I could see him being able to get 30 home runs this season. Nico Horner does a good job of moving the line. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, at the top of the fold, Jonathan India is a really good leadoff hitter at being able to move the line. You're able to get some good at-bats as well out of Tyler Stevenson. Stevenson last year hit a .319 before injuries cut his season short a little bit, but I like his upside. But then from there, you need to look to someone like a Jake Fraley to be able to give you big time at bats along TJ Friedel. As we all know, Joey Votto, this guy just very long in the tooth right now. You have Luke Maile, who's right now getting at bats for this team. So I do not necessarily think the world of the Cincinnati lineup, though. I do think that the bullpen is very good. Fernando Cruz along with Alexis Diaz last year both had sub-2 ERAs. Ian Gabo was able to pick it up towards the back half of the season. And for the Cubs, it is a little bit of a top-heavy bullpen. They bring in two really nice pieces in Brad Boxberger and Michael Fulmer to be able to shore things up. Julian Merriweather, not great. They're trotting out their Aviad Assad from the bullpen. That is not necessarily what you want either. Michael Rucker, not a guy that I have too much faith in, but I do think that Wozniacki is going to be able to lend a relatively solid start. And Luis Sessa was really able to find himself as a starter towards the back half of the season. So seeing this total at 9, I'm going to be willing to dive under, despite the fact that it is a hitter-friendly ballpark. It is a bit cooler in Cincinnati as well. So I'm going to be looking at the under. And with the Cubs, did set them as a minus 134 favorite. So want to lay it with the Cubs on the money line and taking a look at this total under. 905, 906 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers play host to the New York Mets. Mad Max Scherzer goes for the Metropolitans, and Wade Miley hopes to have a party in Milwaukee for the Brewers. And with the Brewers, they're between plus 135 and plus 140 underdogs. Between minus 150 and minus 165, the number on the Metropolitans, and 8 is your total. The under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The over is anywhere between minus 105 and even money. Seeing a straight 7.5 out there with the over at minus 120, and the under is even. And semi-total is 7.3, whether you've got a 7.5 or an 8. I do like this total under. The Brewers, they were able to pop off for that big 7-run fifth yesterday. After that, there was no scoring afterwards. So if you, like me, took the over, fortunately, all the hay was in the barn in the 5th inning. But for the Mets, I do think that they're going to pick it up with their offense a little bit. It's been a little bit touch and go for them. They got shut out yesterday, but had the best batting average on the road of any National League team last year. Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso are all off to relatively rough starts, but Alonso had 23 home runs on the road out of his 40 in total last year. Daniel Vogelbach, you know that he wants to stick it to his old team, the Milwaukee Brewers, along with Omar Narvaez, so got a little bit of a revenge angle there. Jeff McNeil last year hit above a 300. Francisco Lindor was able to find himself as well. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, they had that big outburst yesterday, but still have some question marks with the guys at the bottom of the fold, as you got Brian Anderson, Bryce Turang, who I want to see a little bit more from before I'm able to say, yep, these guys are rock solid in the lineup. Rowdy Tellez is not a guy that moves the line, was able to hit for 35 home runs last year, but averaged out there. Jesse Winker seems to be getting back to that form that he showed when he's with the Cincinnati Reds. It was a cataclysmically bad year from last year with the Seattle Mariners hitting at 219, but season before was able to hit a 305. He was able to crank out 24 home runs. I think that it's going to be somewhere in the middle of his days in Seattle, and 2 seasons ago, Willy Adames, ever since he had that big 2021, he hasn't necessarily been himself and Christian Yelich. I mean, talk about a waste of money. There you go. But with the Milwaukee Brewers, big thing with them as well is that the bullpen is just not necessarily too terrific. Hobie Milner is okay in the bullpen along Joel Payamps, Peter Strzelski, but they're currently missing Devin Williams, who's dealing with an injury. That's less than terrific for them. And for the New York Mets, Mad Max Scherzer, relatively solid first start of the season against the Miami Marlins. He does allow those 3 runs, but at the same time, that came very deep into the game. I do think that he is going to be fine in this outing against a Brewers lineup that I'm not necessarily too high on. And even though the Mets are going to be without Edwin Diaz for the entirety of the season, I do think that they're going to be able to do a solid job of holding it on the fort with guys like a Drew Smith, Brooks Raley. David Robertson is still a relatively solid closer for this team, so I do think that Scherzer are going to be able to go out there, get the job done, and I just am not very high on Wade Miley at all. I do think that him being a little bit of a soft tosser, not going to be the world's worst situation, pitching in the Midwest in April, that's able to limit hard contact, but for Miley, he just needs to stay healthy for one, because we just don't have a good sample size on him from the last few years in general, because he pitched only in 8 starts, 9 total games a season ago, 2 seasons ago in 2020. He saw 6 total appearances. Now, last time he was with the Milwaukee Brewers in 2018, he was a big part of that team that was able to make a postseason run, posted up a 2.57 ERA. Since then, it's been very, very much touch and go. When he's been out there, he's been okay, but once again, not someone that is going to get you a lot of strikeouts at all, as his strikeouts per 9 rate is consistently below 5.5. He completely lost himself after a relatively good start in the 2019 season with the Houston Astros, so I just am not very bullish on Wade Miley coming off of a year where he just didn't see the field too much in general and is very much up there in years, so a circumstance where I set the Mets at a minus 164 on the money line, and if you are taking a look at the run line in this ordeal, you're able to find a plus 115. I was willing to take the Mets run line as long as I was getting at the very minimum a plus 105, so I'm actually going to ride with the Mets run line. I do think that they can get to Wade Miley in this spot. I think that Max Scherzer is going to be dominant. Semi-total 7.3, looking under and willing to take the plus price on the Mets run line. 907, 908 is going to be the DK Nation pick, as you got the Atlanta Braves in the road face-off against the St. Louis Cardinals. Steven Matz is going to be going for the Cards, and it is the Dodd father, Dylan Dodd, making his first start for the Atlanta Braves, as the Cardinals are between a minus 130 to a minus 135 favorite. Between plus 115 and plus 120 is your number on the Braves, and the write-up here, that is going to be riding with the Atlanta Braves. I set the Braves actually as a favorite of minus 111 in this ordeal because Steven Matz just has not been good like ever. You either get really good Steven Matz or you get really bad Steven Matz, and in recent years, it's been really bad Steven Matz, as it was so bad for Matz that he got sent to the bullpen when he came back after being injured throughout much of the year last year. He made 10 starts. In those 10 starts, he had a 5.70 ERA, resurfaces in September as a little bit of a bullpen piece for the team, and for Matz, he's allowed at least 1.5 home runs per 9 innings in 5 out of his last 6 seasons, has had at least a 3.82 ERA in every one of his years since 2016. What makes us think that all of a sudden he's going to have a good year this year? There's been nothing to indicate that this is going to be happening. Meanwhile, the 24-year-old Dodd father looked very good at the minor league level. He pretty much went through from high A baseball all the way through AAA last year. 3.36 ERA, 9.6 strikeouts, and 2 walks per 9 innings while giving up 0.6 home runs per 9 innings. And then he made 5 appearances in spring, 18 total innings. He had a strikeout to walk ratio of 5. Looked very solid there, and he's backed up by the better bullpen. The Braves were second in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA, and they get rid of Kenley Jansen, who I recognize Kenley Jansen had 41 saves, but he also blew 7 of them, and, well, when you don't have to trust in Kenley Jansen late in the game, I actually do think that that is an upgrade for the Atlanta Braves. Now, they are dealing with an injury to Tyler Madzik as well, but I do think that the support for our good friend Dodd, it is there, as you still have AJ Minter, Dylan Lee, Jesse Chavez. They bring in Joe Jimenez. I like this bullpen, and for the Cardinals, they were right around 11th in terms of bullpen ERA last year. It just feels like Ryan Helsley is a little bit lost out there right now. Andre Palante feels like he's been getting a little bit lucky as his metrics are not necessarily favorable as well. And for the Atlanta Braves, they led the National League in home runs last year. They were 3rd in the MLB in total runs, and you got Matt Olson right now ripping the cover off the ball. He looked really good in spring training, had a pair of home runs going into the game yesterday. Travis d'Arnaud has looked very healthy to begin the season. That's really been the only thing that has been holding him back throughout his career. Orlando Arcia has gotten off to a nice start. This is a top-to-bottom loaded team with Ronald Acuna Jr. now in off of season number 2 of that cataclysmically bad torn ACL, and typically that's when guys get back to normal. Meanwhile, for the St. Louis Cardinals, they did rip the cover off the ball in their series against the Blue Jays. You had all of these guys: Nolan Arenado, Jordan Walker, Tommy Edman, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman, Alec Burleson, all hitting at least a 300 going into the game yesterday, including Wilson Contreras. So, yep, they are certainly off to a good start, firing on all cylinders, but I do think that Dodd is going to be able to do a relatively solid job here. You know what Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado are going to do this season, but I do think that the Atlanta Braves do provide Dodd with a little bit more support, and even though Steven Matz has more experience, I just have zero faith in him whatsoever. So my DK Nation write-up is going to be on the Atlanta Braves on the money line. I think that they should be a favorite. They're currently an underdog, so easy pickings there. And I do think that Dodd is going to give up a few runs to a Cardinals team that I think has one of the best offenses in all of baseball. Meanwhile, I do think that the Atlanta Braves has one of the best lineups in all of baseball, and will tee off against a guy in Steven Matz that gives up all sorts of hard contact. contact. So I did set my total at 8.8. Looking at the 8.5 over, my write-up, that is on the Braves money line. 909, 910 on the betting board. It is the Colorado Rockies hitting the road face-off against the LA Dodgers. Julio Arias is going to be going for the Dodgers, and Herman Marquez is going to be going for the Colorado Rockies. 7.5 is your total. Unders between minus 110 and minus 115. The overs between minus 105 and minus 110, with the Dodgers. They're between minus 240 and minus 267 favorites, and between plus 205 and plus 225, your number on the Colorado Rockies, and anywhere between minus 120 and minus 125 is the run line price of the LA Dodgers. For the Dodgers, I set them at a minus 246 on the money line, and want to lay up to a minus 122 on the run line, mostly seeing minus 120. Don't want to be laying really much more than a minus 120 on the Dodgers run line, but I'm willing to lay the run line. Now for Herman Marquez, he did have very demonstrative home and road splits last year in favor of the road splits, as he had a 6.70 home ERA compared to a 3.43 road ERA, and home and road splits a little bit less prevalent for Colorado this time of year. If you have to play at Coors Field, so those are going to be taking old once they do leave the road and they get back home, and then they are just traveling back and forth. As CJ Cron, very nice first series against the San Diego Padres. He had a trail of homers. He was able to have 7 hits in that series. What you love to see. They finally have Chris Bryant fully healthy. He and Charlie Blackmon had a combined 13 hits in that series against the Padres as well, and they made a few shrewd moves in the offseason, being able to pick up someone like a Jurickson Profar. Harold Castro is someone that should be able to move the line for the team. I do think that you're going to be able to have a solid season as well out of Jonathan Daza, but this is still a Dodgers lineup that, even with Gavin Lux being out of the fold, even without Justin Turner, you saw Will Smith getting jiggy with it. He had a home run in that series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mookie Betts, he moves the line, he hits for power, he does a great job in the field, he does it all. Max Muncy still looking like he's stuck in 2022 where things were not so great, but Trace Thompson has a lot of upside for the Dodgers team. We saw that 3-home run game that he had over the weekend. JD Martinez down with his power numbers in recent years, but still does a good job of being able to get on base, and these bullpens just don't compare. The LA Dodgers had the top bullpen ERA in the National League last year, and they bring back a lot of these guys, and a lot of these guys are not the big names. Like, they get rid of Craig Kimbrell, and I felt like that was an upgrade because you got more than enough with having guys like Evan Phillips, Alex Vesia, Yancy Almonte, Caleb Ferguson, all providing sub-3.2 ERAs. Meanwhile, for the Colorado Rockies, are without Daniel Bard to begin the season, so you're relying upon Pierce Johnson, who's okay, coming over from the San Diego Padres. Brent Suter is okay with the Brewers, but Jake Bird and company not necessarily cutting it. I do think that Marquez going to be able to land an okay start, and for Julio Arias, you do want to note that he's actually been better when he has been on the road than when he has been at home, really since the beginning of the 2021 season. Last year, .94 road ERA compared to a 2.43 home ERA, so still solid at home, but did give up nearly a home run and a half per 9 innings. What he was at home has relatively solid command. Meanwhile, for Herman Marquez, sometimes that command can be a little bit touch and go for him. So, a circumstance where I do think the Dodgers dominate this game. Don't want to really lay north of minus 120 on the run line, but I recognize how good the Dodgers have been at being able to pull out multiple run wins in recent years. They either lose outright or they win by 2+ runs. So, going to be willing to take that Dodgers run line. Did set my total at 7.1. I think that the Rockies going to have a tough time catching up to Mr. Arias. So, here's 7.5, diving under, and I'm going to be taking a look at the Dodgers on the run line. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The Toronto Blue Jays hit the road face-off against the Kansas City Royals. Chris with the K. Bubich goes for the Royals, and Yusei Kikuchi is on the bump for Toronto. And Toronto between a minus 150 to a minus 160 favorite, and between plus 135 and plus 140, your number on the Royals, and 9.5 is the total. The unders anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The overs anywhere between even a minus 105. And with good old Chris with the K. Bubich, wasn't a great year from last year, but I'm going to be one to back him in this spot. I set the Blue Jays at a minus 133, and more or less, this is just a total fade of Yusei Kikuchi and company, who he did look better in spring training. His breaking stuff, it had a little bit more life on it, so that is nice to see, but hard for me to trust in a guy that had a 5.19 ERA last year. His strikeout numbers in recent years have actually been up dramatically. He just gave up all sorts of ding-dongs. 2.1 home runs per 9 innings surrendered last year. His walks per 9 rate was north of 5. On the road, he had a 5.91 ERA, and he gave up on the road only about 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. It was actually significantly worse when he was at home, but on the road, he gave up over 6 walks per 9 innings. Now, Chris with the K. Bubich comes with his falters as well. He was giving up right around 4.5 walks per 9 innings last season, 5.80 home ERA, 5.37 road ERA, and there were quite a few starts towards the beginning part of last year where he didn't even make it out of the first inning. You take a look at his first 6 total appearances. He went 13 1/3 innings in those appearances, giving up 19 runs and 5 homers. He had an absolutely terrible start to the season. Now, towards the back half of the season, it got a little bit better, but these are two guys that really aren't great at pitching. I did set my total at 9.5 as a result, so even with this high total, I'm going to be willing to take it over. Certainly do recognize that the Royals, they've got some falters when it comes to this lineup, but I do think that having Salvador Perez back at the fold after he had 48 home runs when fully healthy 2 seasons ago, that's going to be big. And I do expect upside from Bobby Witt Jr., Michael Massey. I do think that these guys are going to start to move the line a little bit more. They bring in Jackie Bradley Jr. to help out with the defense in the outfield, but he's able to hit a little bit as well. Did not show that well. He was with the Milwaukee Brewers last few seasons. Meanwhile, for the Toronto Blue Jays, they didn't have a single home run in that series against the St. Louis Cardinals, but what they did do is they just continued to move the line. You got so many guys like Flagler Jr., Alejandro Kirk, George Springer, that while they have very good power, they do a good job of being able to hit for doubles as well. Dalton Varsho, Kevin Kiermaier. These guys help out the defense of the outfield as well. And for the Kansas City Royals, they do bring in Aroldis Chapman to be able to fortify the bullpen. Scott Barlow is someone I like. They don't have the services of Josh Shamou, but all in all, it's a bullpen that it's probably going to be below average this year, but it's not the worst. Meanwhile, for the Blue Jays, I actually do like this bullpen. They have made deals in recent years bringing in guys like Adam Simber, Yimi Garcia, who I thought were very solid moves. Eric Swanson had a sub-2 ERA with the Seattle Mariners last year. I just think that this is flat out a case where you can't have faith in Yusei Kikuchi, and I think that both of these starters are going to get destroyed. I set my total at a 9.7. I'm looking at the over in this spot. Anything of a plus 135 or more, willing to take a shot on the Royals on the money line as well. 913, 914 on the betting board. The Walker Texas Rangers play also the Baltimore Orioles. Tyler Wells hopes to pitch Wells for the Orioles, and Andrew Heaney is on the bump for Texas. The Rangers are a minus 133 to a minus 145 favorite, anywhere between plus 120 and plus 127. Your number on Baltimore with 8.5 being the total. Overs between minus 110 and minus 115. The unders any between minus 105 and minus 110. So my total on 9.1. I'm going to be willing to go over in this spot. You've got a guy in Andrew Heaney that is no stranger to giving up the deep ball. Meanwhile, for Tyler Wells, he just gives up a lot of contact in general. So I do think that this is going to lend itself to quite a few runs. You take a look at Wells last year, and he gave up right around 1.45 home runs per 9 innings. Did a good job of being able to keep it clean with about 2.5 walks per 9 innings, but not a strikeout guy. Only about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He did flail towards the back half of the season, went 5 innings or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts, giving up 4+ runs in 3 of them. That is not what you want to see. Meanwhile, you've got a guy in Andrew Heaney who was able to have a career renaissance last year with the LA Dodgers. Only made 14 starts, but he was able to do a nice job with a 3.10 ERA, but still gave up right around 1.6 home runs per 9 innings towards back half of the season. It felt like he was getting tuckered out a little bit, so that's not terrific. Now, what Andrew Heaney is able to do is he's able to get strikeouts. I don't think that he's going to quite replicate the nearly 13 strikeouts per 9 innings that he had last season, but he's always been a north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings guy. But that said, he's never really been able to put it together for a full season, and he's going up against the Baltimore Orioles lineup that I really do like. Cedric Mullins, we all know what he's able to do. 2 seasons ago, he was one of the best hitters in the league when he was able to hit about a 291 with 30 home runs. A little bit of a dip last year, but still rock solid for the team. Ryan Mountcastle 2 years ago had 30+ home runs. He's a nice power hitter that's able to move the line. Anthony Santander is fresh off of a 30+ home run season. Ode Mateo is one of the best base stealers in all of baseball. Austin the Say's kid does a good job of being able to reach base as well. And then for the Texas Rangers, they just completely tattooed the Philadelphia Phillies to begin the season, and it looks like Marcus Semien is back to being the Marcus Semien of old. He had a nice series in that one. Nate Lowe, Corey Seager in the middle of that lineup. They're both able to move the line. They're both able to provide functional power. Neither of these guys are going to give you like 40 home runs or anything like that, but they do a good job of going deep. And then you've got Adolis Garcia, who's coming off of a very nice 2022. It was an uneven 2022, but 27 bombs, was able to hit a 250. All in all, I do like this Texas Rangers lineup. The big key for them, what are they going to be able to get out of this bullpen? Because you do have one guy that I really like in Brock Burke, who had a sub-3 ERA last year. They bring in Ian Kennedy. Jose Leclerc is still there These guys are very uneven, to say the least. You've got someone in Jonathan Hernandez, who I do think has a little bit of upside. He had a sub-3 ERA last season. I think that he could be a nice cog for the team and for the Baltimore Orioles. They had one of the best bullpens in the league last year, but losing Jorge Lopez, that hurt them quite a bit. Cionel Perez, you have to wonder if he was a one-hit wonder. Felix Bautista, bullseye save on Saturday against the Boston Red Sox. Completely not his fault. That was a fielding error that costed him. But Brian Baker, Keegan Aiken, are they going to be able to continue the success that they had last season? Thus far, it's been no, but it's also a very small sample size. But just don't really have faith in Tyler Wells being able to hold it down. He gives up way too much contact with Andrew Heaney. He is a little bit of a touch-and-go pitcher, but with being backed up by such a good lineup, I do think that Heaney going to be able to give a bit of a better performance here than Tyler Wells, and I do think that for Texas, they are going to be able to get 5+ innings out of Heaney to be able to get to more of those trustworthy bullpen pieces. Set my total at 9.1, looking over with the Texas Rangers, made them minus 148 on the money line. If you're taking a look at the run line, you're getting that at a plus 135, nowhere near enough for me to consider that run line, so we're just going to play it safe, lay a little bit of juice on the money line here with the Texas Rangers, and take a look at this total over 915, 916 on the betting board. The Houston Astros play host the Detroit Tigers. Matt Manning is going to be going for the Tigres, and Framber Valdez is on the bump for Houston. Houston between a minus 265 to a minus 285 favorite, and between plus 228 and plus 240. Your number on Detroit, 7.5 is the total. Over and under are both at minus 110, and when it comes to the Detroit Tigers, I do need at least a plus 253 to take a shot here. If you're looking at the run line of the Houston Astros, currently at DraftKings, I'm finding it at a minus 125. I am not really willing to lay anything more than a minus 128 in this ordeal, but at a minus 125, I'm going to be willing to ride with it. Framber Valdez has been able to do a very functional job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. As a matter of fact, with Framber Valdez, even though he does give up a few more walks than I'd like to see, this guy's just absolutely incredible at being able to hold guys on and being able to reduce hard contact, as he gave up a half a home run per 9 innings overall last year and 3 home runs at 86 and a third innings when he was at home last year. Now, I will say he did have a 3.54 home ERA compared to a 2.27 road ERA last season, but the good news is he's going up against the Detroit Tigers, who had 1 home run and 3 total runs in their first 3 games of the season against the Tampa Bay Rays. You really just don't have a lot of offense with this team. Having Austin Meadows fully healthy is nice. He had 4 hits in that first series, but Spencer Torkelson has not been able to live up to his top pick billing. Riley Green, I think, is going to be able to get on base a little bit this year, but Eric Haas, Matt Vierling, Miguel Cabrera. With Cabrera, he's long in the tooth. With Haas, he's not very consistent. With Matt Vierling, had a few moments with the Philadelphia Phillies. Need to see more out of him. Lots of question marks with the Tigers lineup, and it might be the worst in all of baseball. Meanwhile, for the Houston Astros, even with having Jose Altuve out of the fold, dealing with the injury to Michael Brantley, you still have so many guys like Kyle Tucker, Jeremy Pena, Jose Abreu in the first series against the White Sox. All these guys have 4+ hits. All Abreu does is hit for 300 and about 100 RBI every single year. I like their young guy, David Hensley. He had some good at-bats when he was given time last season. Martin Maldonado's a little bit of a dead bat for the team, and Alex Bregman always takes some time to be able to get gassed up. 0 hits in the first 4 games of the season entering yesterday, but I know that he's going to pick it up. And for the Astros, they had the number 1 bullpen in terms of ERA last season. No reason to think that they're going to have any sort of a fall. Seth Martinez had a little bit of a rough go of it against the White Sox, but he, Brian Abreu, Ryan Stanek, Rafael Montero, Hector Neris, Ryan Presley, all these guys had a sub 3.3 ERA. Meanwhile, for the Detroit Tigers, what made them so great last year was having guys like Joe Jimenez, like Gregory Soto, like Andrew Chafin in the bullpen, and now you're left over with Alex Lang, Jose Serrano, not necessarily guys that you want to be trusting in too much. Trey Wingenter, I need to see it to believe it if he's going to be able to turn it around. So I take a look at this ordeal, and I do think that the Tigers are completely outgunned, and I don't necessarily hate Matt Manning. I do think that Manning has quite a bit of upside. Always a sad demonstrative home and road splits. His road ERA has been north of 2.5 points higher than his home ERA since making his debut during the 2021 season, but in a limited sample size of 12 starts last year, gave up less than a home run per 9 innings. Walks per 9 rate was sub 2.5. So I do think that Matt Manning is going to be able to give a relatively okay start, but backed up by a bad bullpen. He's backed up by a lineup that in general just can't put bat to ball. As a result, I set my total at 7.3. Astros played north of 60% of their games to the under, and for the Detroit Tigers, they were the next best under team in the big leagues. I think that neither of these teams are necessarily going to be able to light it up, but I certainly think that the Astros are going to take it to a Tigers team that they're always in danger of being shut out night in and night out. So a circumstance where I am going to be willing to take the Astros on the run line at a minus 125 and taking the 7.5 under. 917, 918 on the betting board. The Oakland A's play us the Cleveland Guardians. Shane Bieber is going to be going for Cleveland, and JP Sears is on the bump for Oakland. Oakland is an underdog of between plus 175 and plus 180. Anywhere between minus 195 and minus 210. Your number on the Guardians, and this is starting to be a little bit too rich for my blood on the Cleveland Guardians, as I set them at a minus 192 on the money line. Now, if you take a look at the run line, you're able to get that at a much more affordable between minus 115 and minus 120. I personally am not willing to go much more than a minus 115, as I set my run line price at a minus 117, but I'm willing to lay the run and a half in this ordeal. I think that this could be an all or nothing spot for the Cleveland Guardians, which we've seen a little bit from them, despite the fact that they hang their hat quite a bit on pitching. Shane Bieber looked absolutely tremendous in that first start against the Seattle Mariners. He was able to go 6 scoreless innings, but he did give up 6 hits, and he had just 3 strikeouts in that spot. Now, the good news is he's going up against an Oakland A's lineup that, let's call it what it is, they're not quite as bad as the Detroit Tigers, but they aren't far from it. They pick up Mendes Diaz, and that should be able to help them out a little bit. He had 3 hits in that opening series against the Angels. Ramon Laureano is back. He had a home run in that first series as well, and then you did have Seth Brown go out for 25 home runs last year. I expect a little bit more from Tony Kemp this year, but by and large, not a great lineup. But it's not like Cleveland is necessarily full of a bunch of mashers either. Josh Chandler did have a home run to begin the season. What the team does a good job of is something that is suited for this ballpark. Moving the line. Steven Kwan, Amid Rosario, Andres Jimenez, Will Brannon, Jose Ramirez. These are all guys that were able to hit at least a 275 last year, with Ramirez being your RBI guy, north of a 120 ribbies, 29 home runs. Love what you're seeing there. And for the Cleveland Guardians, this bullpen is rock solid. James Karinchak, Eli Morgan, Emmanuel Clase, Aniel de los Santos. All these guys had a sub-3.2 ERA. Nick Sandlin, who spent a little bit of time injured towards the back half last season. And for the Oakland A's, when you get into the trustworthy guys, are actually not bad. Like Domingo Acevedo, Danny Jimenez, Sam All. They're able to hold down the fort for you. They're able to give you probably a sub-3.5 ERA throughout the entirety of the season. But the big question is JP Sears. What are you going to be able to get out of him this year? Because I do like his overall upside. I think that he pitched at the Citadel, and he was someone that with Oakland had a few nice starts to begin the year, and then things tapered off a little bit. You take a look at what he was able to do in his friendly confines, about a 4.25 ERA in his starts when he was in New York along with in Oakland. He actually pitched better on the road, and the big thing with him is that he just gives up a lot of contact. Last year, his strikeouts per 9 rate was hovering right in the neighborhood of 7. He's not going to give up a lot of walks, about 2.6, 2.7 walks per 9 innings. He's very reliant upon soft contact, and he should be able to keep the ball in the yard in this spot because it is going to be a start in Oakland. Oakland is going to have the Marine layer out 6:40 p.m. Pacific time, so the ball's not going to be flying too much, but he is going up against Guardians team that does a good job just time and time again moving the line. Shane Bieber, I recognize that he is giving up more contact than he did towards his early years, but with his Oakland A's lineup, I don't think that he's in too much danger of really being in a circumstance where he's giving up a bunch of ding-dongs or anything like that. So I did set my total at 6.8. Here at 7, I'm going to be willing to dive under. And with the Guardians, willing to lay up to minus 115 on the run line. 919, 920 on the betting board. The LA Angels hit the red face-off against the Seattle Mariners. Luis Castillo goes for Seattle, and Jose Suarez is going to be on the bump for the Angels, and the Angels are a plus 135 to a plus 140 underdog, anywhere between minus 148 and minus 160. Your number on Seattle. 7.5 is the total. Unders between minus 110 and minus 125. The overs between plus 105 and minus 110. And with Seattle, I did set them as a minus 171 favorite on the money line. If you take a look at the run line, you're finding that between plus 135 and plus 140. And for the Seattle Mariners, I need at least a plus 125 to be able to take a shot, so I'm going to reduce the juice. I am going to be taking a look at the run line. I don't do it too often with the Seattle Mariners because they do find themselves in a lot of nip and tuck one-run games, and I do like the way that Jose Suarez was able to pick it up towards the back half of the season last year. early on during the year, you were wondering, all right, is Jose Suarez really ready to be able to make the leap as a big league pitcher, because he just was very touch and go. He's gotten a few starts just throughout the entirety of his career, but towards the back half of last year, I honestly did like what I found from him, and we all know that he's going to be backed up by just an all-star lineup behind him, as you've got Mike Trout, you've got Joey Ohtani. These guys are absolutely incredible, and then on top of that, Anthony Rendon, who's currently out due to injury, will be helpful when he comes back, but certainly going to be out of the fold in this game. Taylor Ward, he does a good job of hitting both for average and a little bit of power. Hunter Renfroe, he had 25 home runs last year, and getting back to Suarez, last 10 starts of the season from August on, he gave up 5 home runs in 58 2/3 innings, 3.07 ERA. This after he posted up a 5 ERA to begin the season through the month of July. So I do like the way that he was able to pick it up, but I think that he's just outgunned by Luis Castillo. Ever since he has come over to Seattle, he's had a sub 2.75 ERA, including regular season and postseason action. He's really been able to drop that walks rate right around 2.6, 2.7 walks per 9 innings in a Seattle uniform. His strikeout numbers are still there, and Seattle frankly just backs him up with a significantly better bullpen. Matt Brash, since he's went to the bullpen, has been terrific. Paul Sewald, Penn Murphy, these are guys that are going to have a sub 3 ERA once again this year. Trevor Gott is a guy that always has you catching your breath a little bit, because it's sometimes a little bit touch and go there, but Andres Munoz is absolutely terrific. And then for the LA Angels, what are you going to be able to get out of ancient Ryan DePera along with Aaron Loup? They bring in Matt Moore, who was terrific last year. He had a .195 ERA. I am not sure what you're going to be able to get out of him. Carlos Aceves, north of a career 4.5 ERA, so that's a bit of an issue for the Seattle Mariners. The biggest issue that they had last season was being able to move the line. They were hitting at 230 as a collective. That was a bottom 5 mark in the big league. So they pick up Teoscar Hernandez, who had a combined 279 with 57 home runs last 2 years with the Toronto Blue Jays. Colton Wong, who's hit at least a 249 each of the last 6 seasons. I do expect a lot more out of Jared Kelenic moving forward. Ty France has looked very solid to begin the year. Hasn't had any home runs to this point, but big dumper Cal Raleigh, he's able to drive them in. It looks like he's got a better approach at the plate after he hit just a 211 last year. So I like the Seattle Mariners team. I think that they're coming together, and I think that they're going to do an okay job against Jose Suarez, but where I think they really open up this game is against that bullpen, while theirs is going to be able to hold up and be rock solid. This is a total, I set it at 7.3, so here at 7.5, I would be willing to take a look at this total under, and when it comes to the Seattle Mariners, I think that they get to that bullpen to be able to get a multiple run win, so taking the plus price on the Seattle Mariners run line, reducing the juice on this one, and I'm going to be taking a look at this total under as well. 921, 922 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins hit the road to face off against the Miami Marlins. Sandy Alcantara is going to be going for Miami. Kenta Maeda is going to be on the bump for Minnesota. Minnesota is an underdog of anywhere between plus 122 and I think as high as plus 135. Anywhere between minus 140 and minus 155 your number on Miami. 7 to 6.5 is your total on 6.5. Over is minus 125. The under is plus 105 on the 7. Over and under anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115. And biggest unknown perhaps in the league right now is what you're going to be able to get out of Kenta Maeda this year, which is a big reason why I did set this number why I did. Minus 148 on the Miami Marlins. And I don't really want to mess around with the run line in this spot because I don't necessarily have a ton of faith in this Miami Marlins bullpen. And it does feel like the Marlins are going to be a little bit safer with Sandy Alcantara. But this is going to be Kenta Maeda's first start since the 2021 season. We got to see Maeda a little bit during spring training. He wasn't awful, but he was very far from great. The command was having issues. 6 walks per 9 innings, 4.91 ERA while he was pitching in spring training. And last we saw him during the 2021 season with the Minnesota Twins, he just did not look like himself. He was actually a Cy Young candidate if you go back to 2020. And then in 2021, the ERA goes up to a 4.66, giving up a home run and a half per 9 innings. So I very much have my question marks there. And for Sandy Alcantara, I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression from the absolutely lights out year that he had last year when he was posting up a sub $1.80 home ERA. He did give up 3 runs in 5 2/3 innings in that first start of the year against the New York Mets. And he's not necessarily a super duper high strikeout guy going up against a Minnesota Twins team that they don't have loads of power, but they do a good job of moving the line. Byron Buxton, he's your main power bat. He was able to get a home run every about 15 or so bats last year, and he saw his average be down last year due to injuries. He is back. he is very much healthy. Trevor Larnach is someone that does a good job of moving the line. Jose Miranda and north of 325 on base last season. Carlos Correa is someone that I like as well. A little bit of a rough start to the season for him, but last year 22 bombs, 365 on base. So the Minnesota Twins are able to do a good job of just being able to play some station-to-station baseball. They were really able to take it to the Marlins yesterday. And for Miami, they have really catered themselves to this ballpark. They don't necessarily have a lot of guys who are going to take you yard. Ode Soler, a few years ago while he was with the Royals, he did have 46 home runs, but that's not the norm for him. He's now a little bit more of a move the line, give you a little bit of power sort of guy, like a Garrett Cooper, but they pick up Gene Segura as well. He does a good job being able to get on base, and Arias, former Minnesota Twin, by the way, hit above a 300 last year with them. Jacob Stallings is someone I do like at the catcher spot, but has not been able to blossom with the Miami Marlins. And then you do take a look at these two bullpens, and the one thing that the Twins have going for them with Maeda, I just don't think is going to be long for this game. Their bullpen is actually really good. Jorge Lopez, Jorge Alcala, Yohan Duran. This is a really good 1 through 3. I think all three of these guys could post up a sub-3 ERA this year. Could see a sub-2 out of Duran, who I think is one of the best closers in the game. You've also got someone I like, Giovanni Morin. Emilio Pagan should not be employed right now, but past that, it's relatively rock solid. For the Miami Marlins, Uskar Brazobin, he's a relatively solid multi-inning guy, and I do like AJ Puck as well, but you do have some question marks with the likes of Matt Barnes and company. They pick up JT Chargois, which I do think was a nice frisky ad. So with the Miami Marlins, I did set them at a minus 148 on the money line. I do not want to be trusting in them in the run line in the spot, but seeing right around minus 142 and minus 145, I'm going to be willing to lay the heavy juice, and I do think that this is going to be a lower scoring game. Miami, one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks out there in the big leagues, and I think that Sandy gets it done in a rather nip-and-tuck game. Set my total is 6.7, diving under, and I'm willing to lay the rather big price on the Marlins money line. 923, 924 on the betting board. The New York Yankees play host to the Philadelphia Phillies. Matt Stram goes for the Phils, and Domingo Germán is on the bump for the Yankees. The Yankees are between minus 140 and minus 165 favorites, and between plus 122 and plus 140 is your number on the Phillies. 8.5 is your total. Overs between minus 110 and minus 120. The unders any between even and minus 110. I set the Yankees at a minus 186 in this spot, and I was willing to lay a price on the run line. I'm currently finding as high as a plus 145 on the Westgate. I am going to lay the run and a half with the New York Yankees. Matt Stram getting starts is not necessarily what you want to find if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, especially with this bullpen where going into yesterday, Sir Anthony Dominguez had an infinite ERA. That is not too terrific. The Philadelphia Phillies were not getting the start that they were looking for out of Taijuan Walker yesterday as well, so the bullpen's even more taxed, and it just feels like things are spiraling out of control for the Phillies. Jose Alvarado had a great second half of the year last year. First half of the year he was terrible, and he looks like first half of the year Mr. Alvarado. Junior Marte should not be employed right now in a major league bullpen. He needs to be sent down to the minors. Andrew Vasquez is someone that you really can't rely upon. Connor Brogdon, Andrew Bellotti, they're relatively okay, but what sort of length are we going to be able to get on Matt Stram, as he actually came on in relief to begin the season on that opening day Thursday against the Texas Rangers, so he's not really stretched out. He has made a few starts in his career, but has never really been overly impressive, and for Matt Stram, you take a look at what he did last year with the Boston Red Sox, and he made as many starts as myself. Had a 3.83 ERA coming out of the bullpen. Has never necessarily been a super high velocity, necessarily a super high strikeout guy, so I'm not sure what you're going to be able to get out of him in this spot. So, that is very, very interesting. Meanwhile, Domingo Germán, I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up a little bit. Now, he had a really bad spring. He had north of a 5 ERA, and last year, you could tell that it was very much touch and go. After his first few starts of the year were a little bit disastrous, he was able to pick it up at a 3.61 ERA overall, was hurt by the deep ball, giving up right around 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, and this is a Phillies lineup that is going to be able to take him deep. Kyle Schwarber was second in the league in home runs, only Aaron Judge last season. You got Trey Turner, who does a great job moving the line. He gives you a little bit of power, steals some bases. Nick Castellanos looks to be more like himself this year rather than when he was out there in the fold last year. Alec Boehm does a good job of being able to get on base. Derek Hall, I think, has some upside, but for the New York Yankees, it is a little bit more of an all-or-nothing offense, but I do think that they're going to be able to get it all against Matt Stram and this terrible bullpen, as you've got Aaron Judge, who had those 62 home runs last year. He was legitimately in the running for the Triple Crown. I think Giancarlo Stanton hits better than a 220, unlike last year, but he's very much a power guy. You've got Gleyber Torres, who looks to be a little bit improved at the plate. You've got a Rookie of the Year candidate and Anthony Volpe as well that does a lot of good things. Anthony Rizzo has a nice eye at the plate. He's got a lot of power, and for the Yankees, they just flat out have the better bullpen in this spot, even with Aroldis Chapman now out of the fold. You've got Ron Madanacchio, who I think is a nice building block for the team. Going to be interested to see what Clay Holmes does this year after he had the big year last year, but tailed off towards the back half of the season. Albert Abreu, relatively solid in that bullpen, as well as Wandy Peralta. So with the Yankees, I do think that they should be able to dominate in this spot. Matt Strahm just should not be getting a start here for the Philadelphia Phillies, and I'm going to be willing to ride the run line of the Yankees in what I think is going to be a relatively high-scoring game. I set my total at a 9.6. Herman did not look sharp in spring. I don't think he's very sharp in general going up against a good Phillies lineup, and the New York Yankees, I think, tattoo the Philadelphia Phillies. So looking at the run line in the spot, and I'm going to be taking a look at this total over 925, 926 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals play as the Tampa Bay Rays. Josh Fleming is going to be going for the Rays, and Chad Kuhl is on the bump for Washington. With the Rays, they're between minus 154 and minus 170 favorites, anywhere between plus 135 and plus 145, your number on the Nationals. And 8.5 is the total, over is minus 120, and the under is even. Set my total at 9.1, even if this gets up to a 9. I'm going to be willing to ride with the over in this spot. You got a guy in Chad Kuhl that is coming over from the Colorado Rockies, and when you're with the Colorado Rockies, your ERA is always going to be a bit elevated because you are playing at, well, elevation. 5.72 ERA last year for Chad Kuhl after the season before while he was with the poopy Pittsburgh Pirates. It was more around a 4.82. I think that he's going to be returning to being a mid-4s guy this year. He's not the world's worst pitcher. He's far from the world's greatest. Had a 6.32 road ERA, but once again, I think that going to and from elevation, that really threw him off quite a bit. Has always been a guy that gives up quite a bit of hard contact, but with Josh Fleming, it's not like this guy's the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching either. He had a 6.43 ERA last year. He doesn't necessarily pick up a lot of strikeouts. He really doesn't have such great command either, so there's a lot of question marks when it comes to Fleming, and I do think that the Rays, as they typically do with Fleming, they're only going to have him out there for a few innings, and then they're going to be taking a little bit more of a wholesale approach. You could see a lot of Ryan Thompson. Jalen Beeks is able to give you multiple innings. Jason Adam is rock solid. Pete Fairbanks is great in this bullpen, so I do think that the Rays are going to be going by committee out of the bullpen after Fleming gives you a few innings, and then when it comes to Washington Nationals, this bullpen is not terrible. Erasmo Ramirez is able to give you multiple innings at a sub-3.3 ERA last year. You take a look at Mason Thompson, and he's a guy that I think has some upside. He had a sub-3 ERA season ago. Carl Edwards Jr. is able to give you some solid innings, and for the Nationals, it's not a great lineup, but certainly it's not on the par with like the Detroit Tigers and the Oakland A's. They are much better than that. Joey Meneses last year hit above a 300. He was getting a home run every 15 or so at bats. Lane Thomas moves the line. He's able to give you a little bit of power. Keibert Ruiz has shown through very solidly as a good prospect. Had a home run in that first series of the season against the Atlanta Braves. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, this is not necessarily a superpower team. You've got guys like Wander Franco and Randy Arozarena. They just check every box. They do a good job of getting on base. They'll give you some average. They'll probably give you about 20 to 25 home runs when it's all said and done, but they just do a good job of giving you professional at-bats. Same with the Andy Diaz, who had nearly a 400 on base last year. The big key is being able to have some of the guys that were less than great last year, like a Luke Raley, Taylor Walls, be able to step up. They pick up Christian Bethancourt, who, since he got acquired from the Oakland A's, hasn't necessarily been himself. And I just think that this is a spot where you've got a guy in Josh Fleming that I don't think is going to be very long for this game, and I do need to take a look at the run line instead, because I do have the money line here at a minus 153, which means I would need to get more than a plus 150 on the Washington Nationals. We are not quite there, and if you are taking a look at the run line in this spot, you're able to get a run and a half with the Washington Nationals right around a minus 110. I was willing to take it as long as I was able to get more like a minus 112. So being able to get a minus 110, getting a run and a half with the Washington Nationals, that appeals to me because I do think that they're actually going to be able to get to Josh Fleming in this spot. And with the Tampa Bay Rays, I need a plus number to be able to take a look at their run line, just because I just don't have faith in Josh Fleming in this ordeal, and I did think that Chad Kuhl going to give an okay start here. So I did set my total at a 9.1. You're at 8.5. Going to be taking a look at the over, and I'm willing to take a run and a half with the Washington Nationals right around about a minus 110, and we wrap things up 927, 928 on the betting board. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they are going to be hitting the road face-off against the Boston Red Sox. Nick Pivetta is going to be going for the Sox, and Alonso Contreras is going to be on the bump for Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is an underdog between plus 125 and plus 135, between minus 145 and minus 150 is your number. On Boston 9 as the total, overs between minus 110 and minus 120, the unders any between even and minus 110. I set the Red Sox at a minus 172. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. I like the upside of Alonso Contreras. I think that he's going to go out there. He's going to be able to give the Pittsburgh Pirates 5 to 6 sharp innings. So if you're looking at a first 5, I would not advise the Red Sox as much on that. I would advise them much more on a full game, just because with the Pittsburgh Pirates, bullpen is not great. Chase Young was able to have a nice year last year. David Bednar is not the world's worst reliever either. He's going to be able to give you a sub-3.3 ERA this year, but Edwin Uceta, Dwayne Underwood Jr., Dori Moreta, Colin Holderman. I mean, these are guys that you want absolutely no part of whatsoever. Now, for Boston, it's not like this is a terrific bullpen either. They pick up Kenley Jansen. He had 41 saves this last year, but Kenley Jansen, not a guy that you want to be hitching your wagon to too much. Chris Martin, he's a little bit long in the tooth. He's been around for quite a while last year. Well, with the Dodgers, actually had a really sparkling ERA after he struggled with the Chicago Cubs, so there might be a little bit of something there. John Schreiber's relatively okay, but when you get into the guys like Caleb Bort, Zach Kelly and company, it's not so great. But what is terrific for the Red Sox is going into yesterday, they had approximately 9 runs in their series against the Baltimore Orioles. I'm actually doing this as they are playing their game against the Pirates. They're going to have at least 5 runs in each of their first 4 games of the year, probably more. And you take a look at this Red Sox lineup, and it's built very well for this ballpark. Adam Duvall in recent years had some struggles, but being able to hit over that green monster, I think, is absolutely perfect for him. You go back to his days with the Cincinnati Reds, it's quite a few years ago, but he was pounding out 30-plus home runs there, and I do think that he's able to recapture that magic this year. You've got a guy in Rafael Devers who is right now seeing the ball very well, gets on base, hits for power. I like that. Justin Turner down for Wood is off to a really nice start to the season. Kike Hernandez, it looks like he has found himself as well. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, you've got a very much all-or-nothing lineup. Oniel Cruz has a lot of upside as a power hitter, but he's either going to give you an 0 for 5 or he's going to give you 3 home runs. It feels like you get all or nothing with him. G-Man Choi is someone that's able to find a way on base, and I do like Brian Reynolds. In north of a 250 with 25-plus home runs last year, but Carlos Santana, Jax Wisniewski, they're going to give you a few home runs, but they are not going to get on base very often. You've got dead bats at the bottom of the fold like Rodolfo Castro, Jason DeLay. I just think that the Red Sox are going to be able to outslug in the spot, and for Nick Pivetta, the big key for him, being able to keep this game out in front of him and not let things just completely spiral out of control, because in his years in Boston, he's at a higher ERA at home rather than on the road. He does give up quite a bit of hard contact, 1.5 home runs per 9 innings in Boston last season and 3.8 walks per 9 innings at home last season as well. Not sure what it is, but he always decided struggles in Boston. I do think that this is going to be a relatively high-scoring game, set by total at 9.2, so here to 9. I'm going to be looking at the over in this ordeal with Ronald Contreras. Like the fact that he was able to pick it up towards the back half last year and has good electrifying stuff, as he only had about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. I think that is going to be higher this year with him being a year older and a year wiser. He was making his debut at the age of 22, but I also do think that he's going to be rattled going up against this lineup. He was giving up about 1.25 home runs per 9 innings, and he does have some command issues, and I think once you get into that Pirates bullpen, that's where the floodgates open. So looking at the over and with the Red Sox, I'm able to get a plus money price on the run line between plus 130 and plus 140. I was willing to take this pretty much at even money or better. So looking at the Red Sox run line and the over, and that will wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to our good friend Jon Jansen over there at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways to be offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, and that means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.